Carlson's in town. Now, it was just Cranberry yesterday, but it'll be Pittsburgh proper today. And I got to tell you something. That has not stopped being cool just yet. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates, the other two teams in town that I cover. The Carlson introductory press conference will take place at 2:30 p.m. today inside PPG Paints Arena's media room, and it'll be the first chance for Carlson to speak to the mammoth trade, and any trade involving someone of his pedigree is mammoth, that brought him here. And it'll be the first chance to hear from him his unfiltered thoughts on becoming a member of this organization. The reason I throw in that qualifier is that a couple of weeks ago, Carlson was interviewed by a Swedish reporter, and the interview was great. I'm not knocking it. It's just that when Carlson was asked about Pittsburgh being a favorite and, which way he might be leaning, Carlson very understandably hedged and steered clear of it, even though you could tell the interviewer was onto something. Now, hey, you can just say it like it is, because there's no way that this occurred, considering he has a total no trade clause, without not just his consent, but also his enthusiastic approval, possibly his outright selection, depending on the perspective or depending on how many teams were there at the end. And I'll say it again, that's cool. It's very, very cool to picture Carlson in Pittsburgh getting ready to play for the Penguins. He is a performer at that level. He is an acquisition worth getting extra excited about. This is not something that you as a fan will be able to enjoy on any sort of regular basis. You will remember this for years. But then, as with every other acquisition, when the season comes around, it's all going to come down to, did he or did he not make the difference in winning/losing this game? I'm not sitting here questioning the value of Carlson. I'm not questioning the value of adding him to this group. So what's really in play here is whether or not the entire roster is capable of breaking back into the Stanley Cup playoffs. Here's what Kyle Dubas had to say a couple days ago about his own expectations in that regard.
I think it's just the affirmation that we believe that they have a chance to contend and compete for a championship. And there's a lot of work that has to be done. Obviously, the team missed the playoffs last year. There's no dancing around it, but we've tried to supplement as best we can. And I know that there'll be lots of people that doubt the group, and rightfully so. I mean, we have to go out and prove it starting in the first day of training camp and building to where we want to get to. So I think the doubts are fair. I think the criticisms are fair. We have our belief, and then it's about us to go and execute. And that's on me to lead the way and get the group and the coaching staff and the players what I think they need. So it was a unique opportunity to add a player like Erik, where obviously we had to part with some assets, but we gained more flexibility and added him on at the same time. And I think that was the message is clear, is that he's still an elite player, as he showed last year winning the Norris Trophy. We have a chance to add him. We're going to do it because we believe in the group.
Bit of a longer answer than I usually play on this show, but there's something about the way Dubas talks that I kind of like. He goes in layers, but he's also organized and meticulous, even as he comes across as being genuinely sincere and human. It's a neat thing. So take that for what it was. What you heard there was Dubas not once, but twice sounding, curiously defiant about the group that he's got. Maybe that's something that's coming from Mike Sullivan, because he's spoken in that tone more than once in the past, especially when anyone challenges the concept of the three core guys. But this is different now because it's a different roster. Did you know that 8 players are gone from the team that got beat by the Rockford Ice Hogs in April? Did you know that? That's not quite half the roster, but it's close. So there are a lot of new names, a lot of new faces, a lot of new pedigrees, and they're being put into what'll be for some of these guys new positions, meaning with the new team. Are they better than they were to finish last season? That to me isn't much of a mystery. They've added Erik Karlsson. Okay, he does that all by himself. They're a better team. But remember that being a better team than that one just means they would have taken care of the Ice Hogs and squeaked into the playoffs, at which point, and I said this at the time and I'm going to say it now, they'd have been summarily dispatched as if they never participated. That's what that team was made out of. So the improvement that needs to take place is significant, and it's bigger than any one acquisition, even Carlson. Lars Eller, Noel Acciari, Matt Nieto, they all have to become legitimate upgrades to the bottom 6. I believe that it starts there. That's not that it's the top priority, but I believe that's going to be your first real indicator that this team is different than that one. Because those guys are going to have to look and feel different than who they replaced. Otherwise, it's just going to be more third and fourth liners out there killing time until the Sid or Gino lines get on the rink. You're going to have to see more mobility on defense. I hear again now, Carlson addresses a lot of that just by existing. But you're going to need to see offense created, not necessarily points production, but offense created by Ryan Graves. You're going to need to see Graves show himself to be worthy of a top 4 slot. He did it in New Jersey, but he's going to need to do it in Pittsburgh, and it might not be the same thing. And then, of course, we get to the top priority because he's always the top priority, and he's going to remain the top priority, and that's Tristan Jarry. If Jarry comes in and looks the way he did at times a couple of years ago, when he was legitimately showing for significant stretches as one of the top half dozen goaltenders in the league, evidenced by save percentage and games played and wins and everything else, man, we're having a very, very different discussion then, aren't we? When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shots brought to you by Family Table. Mom-inspired, chef-prepared meals delivered straight to your door. No prep, no mess, just reheat. That gives you more time for your family or hobbies. Go to FamilyTablePGH.com. Use the code DK40, that's DK40, for 40% off and free delivery on your first order. Order by noon Thursday for Monday delivery. Family Table, bringing families back to the dinner table. Today's J1Q comes from Daryl in Nova Scotia, who asks, "Hi DK, I am extremely excited about this trade. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch for sure, but they definitely could use another really defensive-minded defenseman in their group. People still talk about how old and slow Hal Gill and Rob Scuderi were, but they forget that both of those guys were on the ice for that last faceoff when Marc-Andre Fleury made that save on Nicklas Lidstrom in Detroit. Who could the Penguins target for that role, or do you think they even have to?" Daryl, my answer to this question would vary depending on the decade. That's what I've got for you. I would have said that no team could succeed at the level that that 2009 team did, and of course countless others, without having that stay-at-home defenseman, that stand tall, take you out at the blue line guy, clearing the front of the net, winning the big battles in the corners, going down to block shots. That was a big Scuds thing. But the game's changed. And the game has changed, I think, to the extent that there isn't a team somewhere that could just, be the renegade and handle everything differently and shock the system. And by that, I'm referring to the 2016 Penguins, who flew in the face of everybody else being big and strong and tough by just flying around them and generating a zillion shots, taking the hits, but then delivering the offense. This isn't that. The game has turned toward favoring offense, which is great for entertainment. I prefer it this way. But it's not so great for the Brian Dumoulin's of the league. And I'm saying that about even peak Dumo. When Dumo was the best version of himself, 2016 and 2017, he was a vital member of those championship teams. Now, what gets forgotten is that he actually scored a goal, a pretty big one, in the 2016 final, in the decisive game, no less. And he, through his skating and through his smarts, and we can forget this now, but through his speed, this is a fast guy, considering his frame, contributed more to the offense than might get noticed. And that was why, in referencing Ryan Graves, as I did near the end of the opening segment today, I mentioned that he can contribute to the offense, though not necessarily from a points production standpoint. What I mean is that he can engage, he can support a rush, he can even lead a rush. He doesn't have to end up with assists out of it. He's got to help you move the puck out of the zone. He's got to help you carry it into the other team's zone. Again, even if he's just skating alongside you as a decoy. Graves can do that. Graves' film from this past season in Newark will show that, even as it'll show that he wasn't exactly running up a ton of goals and assists. Now, to your point, and if you can tell here, I wasn't dismissing it at all, and I'm not going to, because when you have, my goodness, they're going to introduce Erik Karlsson today at PPG Paints Arena, okay? I'm just going to remind you of that, all right? But when you have Carlson and Chris Letang on your right side, it's kind of similar to what happened when those two were together in San Jose. You don't worry as much about having a super defensive guy like a Marc-Edouard Vlasic, who was playing behind them, although he had his own peak of his own career where he was really respected for that sort of thing. That's faded over time, and that's had a lot to do with the changing of the sport, more so than Vlasic just disintegrating. If you're looking at this foursome that's on this defensive core with Carlson, Letang, Graves, and Marcus Pettersson, what's left behind them is Chad Ruhwedel and P.O. Joseph and depth guys. Ruhwedel's not going to put up a bunch of points. He's also not going to embarrass you in the offensive zone. P.O., he has more offense in him than he's shown. Occasionally he'll really flash. But I could see at some stage of the season, if the Penguins were to, for whatever reason, struggle in something, let's say it's specific, like penalty killing, where they would focus more on finding themselves a defensive type defenseman, kind of like, and I know nobody wants to hear about anything positive related to Ron Hextall, but kind of like what the Dmitry Kulikov acquisition could have been had Kulikov not gotten hurt almost right away. That kind of player stepping in and being that take care of business in the final minute type of defenseman. That's not on this team, and I can't rule out that it wouldn't become a need. I appreciate the question. Very good one. I appreciate everyone listening to Daily Shot of Penguins, and we'll do another one of these tomorrow after Erik Karlsson is introduced.